There are JRPGs that critics hailed as masterpieces, games with perfect scores, revolutionary design, stories that stuck with people for decades, and almost nobody played them. Not because they were bad. They got buried by dead consoles, terrible timing, or marketing that just didn't exist. Vagrant Story scored a perfect 40 out of 40 on Famitsu. Panzer Dragoon Saga is a critical legend, and fewer than 20,000 English copies were ever sold. These are the games that deserved better. The JRPGs that deserved so much better. Let's go through 20 of them.
Number 20, Opoona on the Wii. This might be the weirdest JRPG you've never heard of. Developed by Arcadia, the Dragon Quest remake team, the art style looks like Katamari Damacy had a baby with a children's book. Your main character is literally a ball with arms and legs. Combat's turn-based, but you aim attacks by pointing the Wiimote. There's this whole job system where you can be a treasure hunter, a comedian, a fortune teller. Slice-of-life RPG meets sci-fi exploration on an alien planet. It's genuinely creative and completely unique. So, why did nobody buy it? Marketing was non-existent. The box art looks like a budget kids game. The name Opoona means nothing. Nobody knew what the fuck it was. And the audience didn't exist. Casual Wii owners wanted Wii Sports. Hardcore JRPG fans were on PS3 and Xbox 360. The Wii JRPG audience was tiny. Experimental design, zero marketing, wrong platform. Dead on arrival.
Number 19, Gungnir on PSP. Tactical RPG from Sting. Gorgeous 2D sprites, deep class customization, morally complex story about rebellion and revolution. The combat's legitimately challenging. You've got a tactics point system that forces strategic decisions. The class system lets you customize units with different weapons, skills, magic types. Multiple story paths based on moral choices. The narrative deals with war crimes, genocide, class warfare. It's dark and doesn't pull punches. Critics praised it. 8s and 9s across the board. Problem? Released in 2012. End of the PSP lifecycle. The Vita was already out. The 3DS was dominating. By the time Gungnir launched, the PSP install base had moved on to new hardware. Great game, dead platform. Timing killed it.
At 18, Koudelka on PS1. This is a horror RPG hybrid, the precursor to Shadow Hearts, set in a haunted Welsh monastery in 1898. You're investigating supernatural shit with this cast of occult investigators. The atmosphere is oppressive, the tone is grim, the pacing is deliberately slow. Combat's turn-based, on a grid, you move characters around for positioning, weapons degrade, ammo is limited, there's resource management and survival elements years before Resident Evil 4 popularized that design. The voice acting is actually good for PS1. Full performances, British accents, theatrical delivery, the FMV cutscenes are genuinely cinematic. But it came out in 2000. Awkward transition between late PS1 and early PS2. Final Fantasy IX just dropped, Chrono Cross just dropped, the market was saturated with high-profile Square games, and the horror theme alienated people. JRPG fans wanted fantasy adventures, not slow-burn gothic horror. Horror fans wanted Resident Evil and Silent Hill, not turn-based combat. Too experimental, too slow, wrong timing. Cult classic now, flop then.
Number 17, Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter on PS2. This is a radical reinvention. Survival mechanics, permadeath, roguelike structure. You've got a D counter that's constantly ticking up. When it hits 100%, you die and restart. The setting's post-apocalyptic. Humanity lives underground in this oppressive dystopia. You're at the bottom of society trying to reach the surface. The dragon transformation is this limited resource you can't spam. Every use pushes you closer to death. It's deliberately challenging. Resource management matters. Every fight is a risk-reward calculation. The game expects you to die and restart with knowledge from previous runs. And fans fucking hated it. They want a traditional Breath of Fire. Fantasy world, elemental dragons, fishing minigame. They got survival horror roguelike with permadeath. The existing fan base rejected it. New players didn't know what it was. Polarized reception, disappointing sales. The series died after this. Real talk though, it's aged incredibly well. The ideas here, limited dragon power, roguelike structure, oppressive atmosphere, were ahead of their time. If this released today as an indie game, it'd be praised for its bold design. Wrong game for the wrong fan base at the wrong time.
At 16, the Valkyrie Profile games, Lilith and Someria. These games are mechanically complex as hell. Norse mythology setting, you play as a Valkyrie recruiting dead warriors for Ragnarok. The structure is completely non-linear. You've got a time limit, you choose which locations to visit, different story paths based on your decisions. Combat is this hybrid action turn-based system. 4 face buttons control 4 party members. You chain attacks together, build combos, break enemies, launch them into the air. Timing matters, positioning matters, there's platforming and dungeons. The presentation is gorgeous. 2D sprites on 3D backgrounds. Sakuraba's soundtrack is incredible. The story jumps between tragic vignettes of dead warriors and this grand mythological narrative. But the complexity is the problem. The systems are opaque. The time management is stressful. You can lock yourself out of the good ending without knowing it. The difficulty curve is brutal. These games demanded too much from players. If you invested the time to learn them, they're masterpieces. Most people bounced off the learning curve. Hardcore RPG fans worshiped them. Mainstream audiences ignored them. They remained niche favorites.
Number 15, Rogue Galaxy on PS2. Level 5, same team as Dark Cloud. This is their space pirate action RPG. Real-time combat, massive customization, Star Wars-inspired adventure across planets. The production quality is insane. Gorgeous cel-shaded graphics, no loading screens between exploration and combat, massive environments, deep weapons synthesis system where you combine items to create new gear. There's this Revelation flow board that's like the sphere grid on steroids. The game is packed with content. Critics loved it, Level 5 fans loved it. It's considered one of their best works, but it released in 2007, late PS2. The PS3 had just launched. Everyone was moving to next gen. Late cycle PS2 games always struggled for visibility because the market was transitioning, and it got buried by the hype around Final Fantasy XII, Kingdom Hearts 2, and other high-profile Square games from that same period. Level 5 didn't have the brand power to compete. Great game, wrong timing, limited audience as a result.
At 14, The Last Remnant on Xbox 360 and PC. Square Enix tried something different, large-scale squad-based combat. You don't control individual characters, you control entire units, unions of characters that fight together. The strategic depth is real. Unit composition matters. Formation matters. Morale affects performance. The battle system scales to massive conflicts with dozens of units on screen. The story's got political intrigue, ancient artifacts called remnants, a conspiracy plot. The world building is solid, but the Xbox 360 version was a technical disaster. Frame rate issues, pop-in, long loading times, texture streaming problems. It ran like shit. Reviews were mixed because the performance issues overshadowed the ambitious design. The PC version later fixed most problems, but the damage was done. First impressions killed it. Square Enix released it on a Western-focused console where JRPGs struggled. They released it in a technically unfinished state. Sales suffered. The game's actually good underneath the technical problems, but nobody gave it a second chance after that rough launch.
Number 13, Residents of Fate on PS3 and Xbox 360, also called End of Eternity in Japan. This is Tri-Ace, the Valkyrie Profile and Star Ocean team. This is their gun-based steampunk JRPG. The combat system is completely unique. It's real-time movement with turn-based decision-making. You set up running paths, jump through the air in slow-mo, and unleash gun attacks mid-leap. There's this positioning system where you create crossfire triangles for bonus damage. You manage different ammo types. Grenades do scratch damage, bullets convert scratch to real damage. It's cinematic as hell. Characters backflip off walls, slide across the ground, dive through enemies. The hero actions look like a John Woo movie. The steampunk aesthetic is distinct. The world is this massive clockwork tower city. The fashion is Victorian with modern tactical gear. The music is jazzy and atmospheric. But the combat system has a massive learning curve. The game does not explain itself well. The tutorials are confusing. You need to experiment and fail to understand how everything works. Most players bounced off the complexity. The niche that loved it really fucking loved it, but it was too mechanically demanding for mainstream success. High barrier to entry filtered out casual players. Strong cult following, modest sales.
At 12,
Blue Dragon on Xbox 360. This was Microsoft's play for Japan. Big budget, big names. Hironobu Sakaguchi directing, Akira Toriyama doing character designs, the Dragon Ball guy, Nobuo Uematsu composing. All-star JRPG team. Traditional turn-based combat, dragon shadows that fight for you, job system, skill customization. It's deliberately old school, inspired by classic Final Fantasy. The production values are strong. Uematsu's boss battle theme is legendary. It's the most anime opening ever. The art style pops. The world design is vibrant. Microsoft marketed this as the Xbox 360's answer to Final Fantasy. They bundled it with consoles in Japan. They threw money at it. And it didn't work. The Xbox 360 had minimal market share in Japan. Japanese players didn't buy Xbox consoles. The game sold decently overseas but couldn't hit the targets Microsoft needed to justify the investment. Platform exclusivity killed it. If this released on PS3 where the JRPG audience actually was, different story. But Microsoft locked it to a console Japanese players rejected. Solid game, wrong platform, strategic failure.
Number 11, Lost Odyssey on Xbox 360. Another Microsoft exclusive. Hironobu Sakaguchi, Nobuo Uematsu, Final Fantasy pedigree. This was the Xbox 360's big JRPG push. Traditional 4-disc epic, turn-based combat, immortal characters who live for thousands of years. The Thousand Years of Dreams text stories are genuinely moving. Short vignettes about loss, love, memory. The writing is beautiful. The combat's refined classic Final Fantasy, ring system for timed hits, skill linking between immortals and mortals. Boss fights are challenging and require strategy. It debuted at number 7 in North America, sold 203,000 copies first month, strong Western performance. But the Xbox 360 couldn't penetrate Japan. The console was dead there. Even with Sakaguchi's name, even with aggressive marketing, Japanese players didn't care. Microsoft needed global success to justify the budget. Strong Western sales weren't enough. The Japanese market failure meant the project underperformed overall. The game's excellent. Critics praised it, fans who played it loved it. But high development costs plus limited platform reach meant no sequel. Platform strategy killed what could have been a successful series.
Number 10, Shadow Hearts Covenant on PS2. This is the sequel to Shadow Hearts. Alternate history World War I setting. Horror, dark comedy, occult conspiracy. You fight demons and warlocks across Europe while historical events unfold around you. The Judgment Ring is the signature mechanic. Every action, attacks, spells, items, uses this spinning ring with hit zones. You time button presses to land in colored zones for different effects. Hit the red zone, critical. Miss completely, wasted turn. It adds this skill element to turn-based combat. The tone is all over the place in the best way. One moment you're dealing with body horror and demon possession. Next moment your gay vampire wrestler character is showing off his suplex moves. There's this wrestler named the Great Gama who's a historical figure. The game balances dark and absurd perfectly. The atmosphere is incredible. Gorgeous pre-rendered backgrounds, Yasunori Mitsuda soundtrack, the locations, Paris, Florence, Japanese village, are detailed and moody. But the weirdness is also why it stayed niche. The tone is too unconventional for mainstream JRPG fans. The Judgment Ring demands precision that casual players struggle with. The difficulty spikes are real. It appeals intensely to people who love weird shit. Everyone else ignores it. Strong cult following, modest sales.
At 9, Radiant Historia on Nintendo DS. Time travel JRPG. You've got the White Chronicle, a book that lets you jump between parallel timelines. 2 main story paths that branch and intersect. Your choices create different futures. You jump back to fix mistakes and unlock new routes. The narrative is dense. Political intrigue, war between nations, conspiracies, moral dilemmas. The writing is mature. The time travel mechanics create this complex web of cause and effect. Combat's grid-based tactics. You position enemies on a 3x3 grid, then use attacks that push, pull, or group them. Setting up combos matters. Turn order manipulation matters. It's strategic and satisfying. Yoko Shimomura composed the soundtrack. It's beautiful. This should have been a hit. Critics loved it. It reviewed well. The 3DS remake later got attention, but the original DS release in 2011, late life cycle, the 3DS had just launched, Atlas didn't market it heavily, it got buried by bigger releases. Great game, poor timing, limited marketing, cult classic now.
Number 8, Legend of Dragoon on PS1. Sony's attempt to make their own Final Fantasy. 4-disc epic.
Dragoon transformations, characters turn into dragon knights. The addition combat system requires timed button presses for combo attacks. The production was massive. Full FMV cutscenes, voice acting, cinematic presentation. Sony threw money at this, and it's fine. The story is serviceable, the combat has cool ideas, the Dragoon forms look badass. It's a competent JRPG. But it came out in 2000. Final Fantasy IX dropped the same year. Chrono Cross, Vagrant Story. The PS1 was drowning in Square games. Legend of Dragoon got completely overshadowed. Square's brand power and advertising budgets diverted all attention. This had no chance competing with Final Fantasy. It sold decently, over 1 million copies, but Sony wanted blockbuster numbers to justify the investment. It wasn't enough for them to greenlight a sequel. Wrong timing, too much competition, couldn't break through the noise.
At 7, SaGa Frontier on PS1. This is Squaresoft experimenting. Free scenario system. 7 protagonists with completely different stories and gameplay styles, non-linear progression, open-ended structure. One character story is a superhero revenge tale. Another is a magical girl adventure. Another is a monster that absorbs abilities. The variety is insane. The systems are deep. Spark system for learning techniques, Glimmer system for combo attacks, monster transformation, magic gift combinations. It's mechanically rich, but it's esoteric as hell. The game doesn't explain anything. You can wander into areas you're not ready for. You can miss critical story beats. The structure assumes you know how SaGa games work. Western audiences in 1998 didn't know SaGa. This was their introduction. No hand-holding, no clear objectives, just figure it out. And it released near Final Fantasy VII. Square was cannibalizing their own market. The complexity alienated newcomers. The timing worked against it. Mixed reception in the West. Strong cult following among people who invested the time to understand it.
Number 6, Suikoden II on PS1. This is considered one of the best JRPGs on PlayStation. Political epic about war between nations, 108 stars of destiny to recruit, castle building, army battles, duels, multiple story paths. The narrative is mature. Themes of friendship, betrayal, the cost of war. Your relationship with your best friend who becomes your enemy is genuinely emotional. The writing is sophisticated. The sprite work is gorgeous. The castle headquarters grows as you recruit characters. The sense of building something is satisfying. This should have been huge, but the localization was rushed, translation errors, typos. The English release was sloppy. Marketing was nearly non-existent. Konami barely promoted it. It flopped in the West. Low print run, now physical copies cost hundreds of dollars. It's become this legendary rare game. Retrospective acclaim made it famous. At launch, barely anyone played it. Poor localization and weak marketing killed it.
At 5, Xenogears on PS1. Ambitious philosophical narrative. Religion, psychology, reincarnation, government conspiracy. The story is dense and complex. It tackles heavy themes. The combat mixes on-foot fighting with gear battles, giant mechs. The combo system is satisfying. The presentation is cinematic. But the development was a disaster. The second half of the game is notoriously unfinished. You sit in a chair while characters narrate events. Entire dungeons are text-only descriptions. The budget and time ran out. Square prioritized other projects. Xenogears got resource-starved. The rushed second half damaged its reputation. It's still beloved for its ambition. The ideas are incredible, but the execution stumbles hard midway through. Commercial performance was decent, but below Square's blockbuster standards. Not enough to secure a proper sequel. We got Xenosaga instead, which is a different beast. Xenogears is a fascinating mess. Brilliant ideas, compromised execution.
Number 4, Skies of Arcadia on Dreamcast. Later, Skies of Arcadia Legends on GameCube. Sky Pirates, floating continents, airship exploration. Swashbuckling adventure. This is pure high fantasy adventure. The exploration is incredible. You captain an airship, discover uncharted islands, fight ship-to-ship battles. The sense of discovery is unmatched. The world feels huge and filled with secrets. The characters are likable. The story is optimistic and fun. The boss battles are epic. You fight giant monsters and enemy flagships, but the Dreamcast died. Sega discontinued it. The game's commercial life was killed by platform failure.
The GameCube port, Legends, added content, reduced random encounters, improved pacing, but the GameCube wasn't a JRPG haven either. Sales remained modest. This is the definition of a cult classic. Everyone who played it calls it underappreciated. The fan base is small, but passionate. Platform failure doomed a masterpiece.
Number 3, EarthBound on SNES. Mother 2 in Japan. Modern setting, quirky tone, satirical humor. Kids fighting an alien invasion with psychic powers. The emotional core is real. The ending is genuinely moving. The writing is clever. The music is iconic. The combat has rolling HP meters. The atmosphere is unique. Nothing else feels like EarthBound. In Japan, successful. In North America, massive flop. Nintendo's marketing was disastrous. This game stinks. Scratch and sniff ads. They marketed it with gross-out humor that completely misrepresented the game. The campaign was confusing and off-putting, and Western audiences in 1995 weren't ready for JRPGs. Final Fantasy VI sold mostly in Japan. The RPG market in the West was tiny. EarthBound was too weird and too niche. It bombed. Low sales, few copies printed. Then the internet happened. Cult following grew. Retrospective acclaim exploded. Now it's considered one of the greatest games ever made. Cultural timing killed it. History vindicated it.
Number 2, Panzer Dragoon Saga on Sega Saturn. This is a critical masterpiece. Cinematic storytelling, unique real-time, turn-based hybrid combat with a dragon, stunning visuals for the Saturn, immersive world-building. The combat revolves around positioning. You rotate around enemies on your dragon, targeting weak points, managing a gauge for attacks. It's strategic and dynamic. The story is epic. Post-apocalyptic world. Ancient bioengineered technology, mysterious ruins. The atmosphere is haunting, but the Saturn failed in the West. Hard. Sega couldn't move consoles. By the time Panzer Dragoon Saga released, the platform was dead. Fewer than 20,000 English copies were produced, not because the game was bad, because there was no market, no install base. Sega cut their losses. It's one of the best RPGs ever made. Almost nobody played it. Physical copies are worth thousands. Platform failure made a masterpiece instantly rare and financially non-viable.
And at number 1, Vagrant Story on PS1. Perfect 40/40 Famitsu score. Third PS1 game ever to achieve that. Action-based chain attacks, weapon crafting with enemy-specific modifiers. You forge and modify weapons for different enemy types. Blunt damage for skeletons, piercing for beasts, edged for humanoids. The depth is absurd. The narrative is mature and political. You're investigating a conspiracy in the phantom city of Leamon. The dialogue is Shakespearean, elevated, literate, theatrical. The writing is sophisticated. The visuals are incredible for PS1. Dynamic camera angles, complex dungeon layouts. The art direction is dark and gothic. Yasumi Matsuno directed this, the guy behind Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. This is his experimental passion project. But the complexity alienated casual players. The weapon system requires spreadsheets to optimize. The combat has a learning curve. The tone is dark and serious. No comic relief, no romance, pure political intrigue. And it launched during peak Square saturation. Final Fantasy IX, Chrono Cross, Kingdom Hearts were dominating mindshare. Vagrant Story got buried by its own publisher. 100,000 copies in 20 days. Square expected more. It wasn't a flagship-level success. No sequel. The fans who understood it called it a masterpiece. Most players bounced off the complexity. Highest critical acclamation, modest commercial performance, the perfect example of this entire list. That's the list. 20 incredible JRPGs that bombed. And here's the pattern. Quality doesn't guarantee success. Dead platforms killed Panzer Dragoon Saga and Skies of Arcadia. Horrible marketing killed EarthBound. Bad timing killed Gungnir and Rogue Galaxy. Mechanical complexity filtered out casual audiences for Vagrant Story and Resonance of Fate. These games failed commercially, but succeeded artistically. They pushed boundaries. They took risks. They built cult followings that last decades. Real talk, some of the best games ever made sold like shit. That's the paradox. Drop your favorite underrated JRPG in the comments. Let me know what I missed.